Welcome to the Florence Foodies podcast, a place for the community where we come together, share the stories, voices, and experiences that make Florence feel like home.
I want to tell you before we hop into this that the guy that was on the first episode of this podcast, I don't know if you saw it or not, but Lewis Hill, he told me about your burritos. He told me about
Okay.
Saguaros. And just at work one day. But I actually think the first time I went, I did a YouTube video on it the first time that I went over there.
Yeah, you did.
And
Mhm.
so I was really impressed though. So I've been back multiple times since. I really don't eat a lot of breakfast usually, but some mornings, if I'm out and about, especially if I know that I'm probably going to miss lunch, then I will. And so if I can catch where you're out and stop by, I like to do it, especially that y'all got a chipotle sauce, which when I
Mhm.
think about your
The
spot, that's
aioli.
yeah, the aioli. That's the first thing that I think about. So
That's my favorite sauce too. Mhm.
yeah, it is. It's really good. So, I mean, it's stuck in my mind, obviously. So, I just want to tell you that I appreciate what y'all are doing, and you're doing a good job.
Thank you, man. I've always appreciated you stopping by, and I thought that YouTube video you made was excellent. I remember I told you that like it was you posted it super fast, but it
I
was
did.
really well made.
Shot it right in the car.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
So, I know a little bit about you and your background, but possibly a lot of people that may listen to this may not. Why don't you let the audience know what it is that you do exactly?
Well, at this point in time, I'm a full-time server at Starfire every single night that they're open during the week. That's Wednesday through Saturday. So I go in at 4. I usually leave around 10. So that takes up those nights of my week. I do my burrito prep throughout the week. And then I open on Saturdays and Sundays on the weekend right now because due to the rules I have to follow without having a trailer of my own, I have to operate within certain guidelines. And so I operate where there's a commercial kitchen available to me to cook out of
Mm.
because at first, if you remember, all my stuff was like prepackaged. And that's how I would still do it at Starfire to follow the rules. But I'm trying to cook fresh more lately and challenge myself to make food to order. So if you come on Saturday or Sunday now, it's all made fresh. It takes about 5-10 minutes,
For the
but
farmer's market.
I use that kitchen to make everything on the spot now. I try to keep my wait times down still, but yeah.
So, when you say rules and regulations, you're talking about DHAC.
Oh yeah, and now it's the USDA. It's switched to them. I don't know
Mm.
if you knew that, but DHEC
No, I didn't.
they don't inspect us anymore. It's the USDA now.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know why, but that change happened. And I paid my inspection fee like a month ago, so I'm waiting for them to come any day now.
So, this just happened.
Yeah, yeah, this is in the last like couple months, towards the end of last year. Yeah, but
Oh, I didn't know that.
it's kind of a big switch, at least for the kitchen. I don't know if it's everybody. I believe it is, but I know that it switched for us.
Huh.
hmm
That's interesting. I'm going to have to look into that.
Yeah, but outside of burritos and Starfire, I still make time to run every day. I love running. That's a big part of who I am. And I fundraise for the run I do every year out west for Owl's Nest. And then I kind of juggle all that and find free time to play music. I love playing music or producing electronic music on FL Studio. Um,
Fruity Loops.
yep, been on it since I was 16 years old.
Nice.
hmm
So what about tell me about the fundraising. What's the drive or the thrust behind that?
Throughout my life, I've lost a lot of people to addiction, both in my family and friends. And my
Mhm.
friends' friend groups in other states seem to be more heavily impacted than Florence, which is good for us, but really bad for bigger, more metropolitan areas like DC, where a lot of my friends are from. A lot, like half of their friends from high school have overdosed on fentanyl and stuff. So I have all these people in my life that have been affected by it, and even if it doesn't take you out entirely, there's so many people I know that it actively ruins their relationships with everybody. And
Mhm.
that's almost as bad as death when you don't care about seeing your mom or you don't care about your family reaching out to you who's concerned for you and stuff. Like it's hard to come back from that. So those are the people that I do it for, and I struggle with it myself for a while in Florence. So I
Yeah.
have a big passion for that.
Yeah, it's something that a lot of people don't really understand, especially if they haven't been impacted directly.
hmm
And so I graduated from West Florence in 2005, and I can relate. There's been probably a couple of handfuls of people that I went to school with, even going back to then, been to more funerals than you would care to go to. We actually had a classmate just a couple weeks ago that passed. I saw that on Facebook. And,
Wow.
so Florence definitely has dealt with a lot
Hmm.
in terms of just whatever you want to call it, but just the ravages of addiction here. But I had a friend, I lived in Augusta briefly, and I had a friend out there that was a firefighter. He may still be. I haven't talked to him in a long time. And I don't want to put words in his mouth. We were sitting outside one night. There was like a group of us having a conversation. And, being a firefighter, he's a first responder. And so he said that it's not unusual in the greater Augusta area for them to respond to 11 OD calls in a day in a shift,
Hmm.
which is insane.
I'd be curious to know how many of those are due to fentanyl too,
Yeah, so
because
this
that's a huge issue right now.
it is. So this was would have been like 2017.
Hmm. Oh, that's a little bit before the rise of it. So
Yeah, but I think it was happening though. But it
yeah, that's around the time it started appearing
yeah,
with quarantine.
yeah,
Right before that, correct?
right.
Hmm.
But mostly I think that his conversation, and like I said, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but I think it was mostly geared towards heroin.
Yeah.
And then, people uh you don't know what you're getting, a lot of times. So
Well, I think the thing that pushed me to do it for that cause was there was a guy from Florence who I never knew my whole life who went to South Florence. I was at Wilson and IB. I never met this man. He was a few years older than me. But I actually met him in California in the middle of nowhere. And he happened to be out in Tracy.
isn't that crazy?
It is, dude. And so this guy, he was living with some people and they kicked him out of his house. And he was living in a park with a bunch of heroin addicts and he had substance abuse issues as well. And I had formed a small relationship with him since I met him. And I was like, dude, you can sleep in the back of my car a couple weeks. And that turned into him moving up to Oregon with me in my apartment and I fronted his security deposit, his rent. He had kids back here. I was trying to help him get on his feet. But it reached a point where like I couldn't help him because no matter what I did, he kept spending his money on substances. Out
Mhm.
in Oregon, it's accessible. So I ended up like having this big falling out, realized I couldn't help him and kicked him out. And then a few months later he overdosed. He shot up coke in Sumter and died
Wow.
after I kicked him out. So like that weight that I felt for so long, I felt like I was kind of responsible for that. But
Yeah.
over time, I realized like I was standing in the way of something that probably was bound to happen. And really, I was trying to help him by like not giving him you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, but that's just something that weighed on me. And that was the final straw that pushed me when I came back from Oregon to do it for that cause.
Yeah. It's definitely something that's probably, I guess, maybe this isn't the right use of this word, but epidemic levels in our country. And a lot of people don't understand it because they haven't been directly impacted. The programs like the Owl's Nest that exist are literally saving people's lives.
And not just that, but those people leave there and save other people's lives. Like
Yeah.
the stories we talked about earlier,
Yeah.
those people have made a huge difference with their story. Because when you've gone through that,
Hmm.
you're the person that can reach the people going through that. And that's what Jesus said all the time. And through his work was that he can use those bad things that you've experienced in your life to literally do the best things.
Hmm.
So that's what I try to eminate
I've
for
seen it
sure.
firsthand with people. We did talk about it, but right out of the Owl's Nest specifically, and they've been around for a long time. So that's definitely probably a place that wouldn't get talked about as much as in our community,
Mhm.
but plays a super pivotal role
Yeah, and a lot of
in our
when I
city.
tell people I raise money for it, they're like, "What is that?" And I love
Right.
explaining it to them. And once they know about it, they see it every time they pass it. They think about it. Maybe they
Yeah.
donate. And I mean, through the runs and stuff, that's helped people become aware of it and raise money for them too. So
Yeah.
I try to do whatever I can to get their name out there.
So I want to ask about the raising money for runs because I don't understand how that works. I'm assuming people send in donations, but the
Mhm.
second thing is, if I heard you correct, you said that you ran from San Francisco to Baltimore. Is
Yeah.
that right?
When I was 19 years old, or 18 to 19, I was a freshman in college. I was in running club at College of Charleston, and our running captain or like president of the running club was doing that run. And she was like, if any of y'all are interested, you should sign up for it if you're not doing anything next summer. It's for a great cause. And I was the only one out of like the 20 of us that was like, I would spend my summer doing that. That sounds awesome. So the rest of my freshman year was me fundraising $5,000 to do this run. And then we all flew out to San Francisco. I got there a few days early. That's the first time I'd ever been anywhere west of Tennessee. And I went straight into the heart of San Francisco. And ever since then, my love for California and the West has been a part of my identity. And that's a big part of my business.
Yeah.
But that is what took me to all these new places along the way through Nevada, Utah, Colorado, Wyoming, Nebraska, Ohio, Iowa, like all the way, well, from there all the way to Baltimore, you know.
So you buy a one-way ticket. I'm just trying to understand how this works. So you buy
Yes,
a one-way ticket to San Francisco from wherever,
from Florence.
from
I
Florence.
flew out of Florence Airport. Yeah.
Nice. Okay. And that's it. There's no contingency plan. Like I'm going to run. How long does it take to run from San Francisco to Baltimore?
So it was a big relay. We broke it up. We did a 2 to 5 mile increments and then tagged in the next team. But collectively, I would say on average, we ran 20 to 25 miles a day. And we it took about 2.5 months to get all the way there.
So what are you doing in between when you tag into the next team on the relay?
We're chilling on the bus, we're taking a break, we're getting some water or checking out the local area that we've never seen before. A lot of that run was me. Once we would get where we were going at like 4 or 5 at night, most people were too tired to do anything else. But a lot of me and my friends that I made on that run, we would just kind of wander these little. It went from the biggest towns in America, like Salt Lake City, San Francisco, Omaha, like to the smallest, these little cities I'll never go to ever again. We would walk around these little towns and check out everything. It was an awesome experience.
Sounds like it. Yeah, sounds like that'd be
Mhm.
like lifetime memories.
Yeah,
So
it's all sorts of places.
and then you said you've done a 24, at least one, maybe more, 24-hour run?
Yeah, so my greatest running accomplishment in my whole career, I would say, is when I was 19, right after that run across America, about a month later, I signed up for a race called the Henson Lake 24-hour Ultra Classic. And that is a race in Rockingham, North Carolina, and they have a lake
Yeah.
called Henson Lake. It's beautiful out there, and it's a mile and a half around it, and you just run laps around it for a day straight. And if you go on Google and look up Henson Lake 2015 results, you'll see that I was number 10 and I did 100.7 miles in a day.
Sweet. So the whole 24 hours.
Yeah, well, I actually left with 50 minutes left to go because I was like, I got to 100, I'm done. That was my goal.
Wow.
But that's the hardest thing I've ever done with running.
So what's
I couldn't walk for like 3 days after that.
I bet not. So walk me through that. Like uh, what's going on in your mind, or like what is it like dealing with? I imagine if it was me and somehow I managed, because like long distance running was never my thing. So I played football, I played basketball, I enjoyed playing sport,
I was awful at all those.
but but long distance running, like just
I tried all
I
those.
never did a lot of it. Matter of fact, I think the longest run I've ever done was somewhere between 2 and 3 miles. Like
That's good.
and
That's more than most
that was
people.
in my late 20s, I think.
That's awesome.
But thank you. But I would imagine if somehow I did manage to do 12 hours of running, by the time it got to, and I'm saying this is almost a 40-year-old man, so I'm probably like old and grumpy at this point, maybe.
Mhm.
But I would imagine by the time it got to 9 or 10 o'clock at night, it would get extremely challenging to continue.
That's the hardest part is nighttime because you've been in 18 hours, you still have 6 to go. It's 2 a.m. 95% of the runners have quit already. The freaks are still out there, like and the thing about me, dude, you'll never see me roll up in Lululemon. You'll never see me in some like Nike jacket or anything. Like I roll up in whatever. And it's all spirit, dude. At night when I'm out there, I tap into something primal. Like I just something takes over. I don't use a headlamp. Like they have glow sticks out there that light the way, but I'm running through the dark.
Hmm.
And everybody else has a headlamp. I don't use a headlamp. Not if I have the glow sticks on the ground, just like barely letting me see the path. So for 12 hours, I'm basically just running through the dark, tripping. And I think the darkness kind of helps you at that point not think about what your body's going through so much. So
Anything that helps.
yeah, yeah. That's how I always try to find the best of any situation.
So that race, how many people started and how many people finished?
Probably about 350 started it, and by the
Wow.
very end, the people that run the entire 24 at least keep moving the whole time, probably 30, 40.
That's still a lot.
Yeah, that's still a good bit of people out there, and the thing is it rained that year the whole time. So after 2 hours, all my socks and shoes were soaking wet. It wasn't an easy one when I pulled off the 100 miles, so that was another factor that made me super proud of that, dude.
100 miles. You could have ran from here to the backside of Columbia.
Yeah, from here to Myrtle Beach,
Yeah.
like, and back up from here to Charleston, really,
Yeah.
like, almost.
Is that the hardest run you've ever done?
That is the hardest accomplishment as far as like distance at one time I've accomplished. But when I think of the most difficult, I go back to last summer because, as you know, like I go to start this run across Northern California and I have 300 miles ahead of me. I get 70 miles into it. This is what I look forward to and save up for all year long.
Mm.
And my dog goes missing,
Yeah.
and my van that I drove out there, that was my grandparents, and they're gone. So this is like one of the only things of them left. Keeps having some kind of electrical issue. I ended up having to scrap it in Vegas, dude. I never. They're in a junkyard right now because I drove back in a rental van.
Wow.
And then on top of that, my missing dog. My friend lost my dog, so I also lost my best friend because we weren't good after that. Like all of this is going on, and I still have over 200 miles left to go. And I remember I cried endlessly that day that I found out that he was gone. But I remember the next day I woke up and I was like, there's really not much I can do. I'm 2,000 miles away. Even if I fly home right now, like the time period where he could have been found is art. Like I'm here for a reason, and
Yeah.
something evil in this universe is like really trying to stop me from doing this right now, but it's not going to. And so I woke up that day and I was like, we're doing 30 miles. And we did it. And then the
Yeah.
next day we did 30. The next day we did 30. And I broke a record and did it in 11 days.
Sweet.
So, and that was so that I could get back to Vegas as fast as possible and then drive the rental back to Florence so that I could look for him.
Yeah.
But, that mentality I had that whole run was just a survival, like, and the heat wave hit Northern California at the time. All the forests I'm going through are burned down. So it's like 100, 110 degrees outside. I'm up in high altitude getting blasted by the sun. I have no shade. All the factors were against me, dude. I got through that though. And that was the hardest run I've ever done
Wow.
for sure. Cause I was being tortured mentally the whole time.
Yeah. That's what I was thinking about when you were saying it is it just goes to show that a lot of times mental angst is much worse than physical. You know what I mean?
It's all mental, dude.
Yeah.
And your mind and your body and your spirit, if one of them is out of whack, when you're doing a run like that, you're not gonna make it. You
Yeah.
have to have all three things line up.
Yeah. I would imagine. Yeah, you got to be
Yeah,
focused,
you
I would
got to
think.
condition
Yeah.
yourself and be physically ready, but like if your mind it doesn't believe and if your heart doesn't believe that you can do this thing and that you were made for this,
Hmm.
you're not going to do it. But
Yeah.
every time I get out there, it's just a different me. That's the most me you'll ever find is out on the road.
Shifting. Well, I asked one more thing about that too. So
Yeah,
the question I had was, so if you're gonna fly across the country and then do this run, you said you had to raise like $5,000. So I mean, you got to have lodging and travel expenses, all these things. Where does the money come in? You're raising money for Owl's Nest and other entities, whatever the case may be, that particular time. Where's that money come from?
that I fundraise.
Yeah.
That's from people in my life that see what I'm doing and they see that I keep in touch on social media while I'm out there. I'm raising awareness out there because I usually go through some big Western city. They struggle with that a lot.
Yeah.
But the money that I raise goes to the Florence community to make a difference. So I just reach out to people I know are passionate about helping this town. And that's how I raise money. And the money they give me goes straight in a bag. And then I take that bag or if they send something to me on GoFundMe, I'll make up the 5% that GoFundMe takes and put their full donation in cash in my envelope, and I'll write down and log somewhere digitally, usually, or on paper, their donation. I have a list of everybody's donations, but I haven't formed a formal 101c3 or whatever it's called yet. So
Yeah.
until then, I just I put it all in cash in an envelope, keep a log, take it to the bank, get it in small like 100 bills, take
Yeah.
it to Owl's Nest, and give them cash. and then they give me a piece of paper saying Matthew Jordan donated X amount to Owls.
I got you. I wasn't trying to get all in your business. I was just
No, no,
curious. I
no.
didn't
I
know.
love explaining it.
I got it though. I get it now. So you're basically you go on this run.
I self-fund most of the run myself. Some people are like, here's some money. I want you to use this for gas. I want you to do this. That's great. But like money donated to me goes to Owl's Nest 100%. Unless I
So yeah,
say, like sometimes I'll do burritos at a local, for example, and I'll be like, half of all of my money today is going to my run. 50% is going to me for gas and stuff. Half of it's going to go to Owl's Nest. I'll
yeah,
look at my cash and my debit sales, subtract the tax out, take that number, and I'll divide it in half and put half towards Owl's Nest and half towards my lodging and my gas and all that. And I also try to, this year I'm doing something different. I'm reaching out to churches beforehand to see if they'll host me so that I don't have to spend money on a hotel and can just put more towards the cause, which is what we did when I was 19 for cancer. We stayed in churches that whole run
oh,
across
okay,
America. We had hosts set up by the organization. I would like to do something like that because there's people out there. Most people, I went on a Lake Tahoe page and was like, we're running through, would anyone be willing to like host us, any church or anything? 90% of the comments were people, rich people in Tahoe saying, y'all are asking for a handout, stay away from our town, like literally being aggressive at me for posting that and trolling me and stuff. But then there's that one person out there that's like, man, my brother struggled with that and he's gone now. Yeah, you can stay with me at night. I love what you're doing.
yeah,
So that I'm looking for that one person in that crowd that's like, I know what he's doing. He's not scamming anybody. He's trying to make a difference out there. I'm going to let him stay here at our church or our school gymnasium
yeah.
floor or something, you know?
So where's the run at this year?
It's from the north shore of Lake Tahoe at Kings Beach, and it's going to end in the middle of the Mojave Desert. Yeah, like near Slab City, if you've ever heard of that. It's like
I haven't.
it's a lawless outpost of people
Okay.
in the desert. Yeah, it's near this huge toxic lake.
Sounds fun.
It looks like Mad Max out there. It looks like a
Okay.
nuke just dropped on everything. It's crazy, but it's like one of my favorite places because I'm a dark tourist.
Yeah.
That's a good way to put me. I usually look for the underbelly of everything I go to.
Yeah.
Mm.
No, I can dig that, man. I like to travel too. I mean, I'd probably rather drive from San Francisco to Baltimore, but
Yeah,
I like
yeah.
the, I'm joking, but I like to be out. I like to get out on the road.
I love driving too.
Yeah. I do though, man. I like to travel and just see places. Obviously, particularly when I go try to find gyms and places to eat and everything, but just to get out and see what's out there. So I can definitely relate to that. So I mean, it sounds like a lot of fun.
Oh, it's the most fun I'll ever have in my life, and people think it's running, so it's like a task or something. No, like I love the pain, I love the suffering, I love the like working towards this next city on my own 2 feet, and I love being in the dark and seeing city lights like on the horizon and being like, I'm gonna be there in an hour. Like
Yeah.
that's the stuff I love the
No,
most.
I mean a lot of that. I mean that's stuff you're gonna always look back on and cherish.
Oh
Like
yeah.
especially for somebody that's now approaching 40. Like you have these opportunities, and each season has its value. So right now we've got I've got 4 kids. I've got a fifth on the way, and I love the season that I'm in. I wouldn't trade it for anything. I really value and
Beautiful.
grateful for the season that I have. But there's things that I could have done in my early 20s that's not feasible now. Like I can't. And so just maximize it each season for whatever it's worth. And to me, that's what you're doing. I mean, even your body, you take really good care of yourself. You could probably be running on into your 70s, but at some
Yeah.
point,
And that's what my mentor from high school, he set the 48-hour record for
yeah.
America. So he ran more miles than anybody in American history for 2 days.
How
He
old
did
was?
like 270 miles in 2 days or something. He was like 40, but he's like 75 now.
Yeah, still running.
He still does
You
that
got to stay
24-hour
moving,
race.
man. I got multiple people around me that are older than I am, but there's some folks that are close to me in my life that are either right at 70 or in their 70s and are in great health. I mean, for their age. We replaced a stove. I won't get into all the details. We replaced a stove a couple days ago, and one of these particular individuals is in his 70s. We took the old stove out that we swapped out, took it down to the dump down here, backed the pickup truck up, threw it into the dump. And when he goes to hop out the back of the pickup, he just literally just jumps out. He didn't like let himself down one leg at a time. He hops out. And it's something that even at my age or your age, you wouldn't think much about. But I mean, in his mid approaching late 70s,
Yeah, that's impressive.
and I just thought, and that's not the first time he's done something like that. But the key with him is he doesn't run, but he has a certain amount of miles. And I wish I remembered how many it was. It's a pretty significant amount of miles that he walks every month.
Oh, walking is great.
Huge.
Mhm.
So, I mean, just staying active, if you do, it can go for a long time. But my point was at some point, whether it's earlier or later, at some point your body will fail you. I mean,
Yeah,
you
we're
can't beat
human.
Father Time.
We're human, dude.
So, I mean, doing what you can and maximizing now, like I said, those are memories that you'll have forever. And I dig it. I mean, some people don't even get out of their house. And I'm like, dude, like you got to get out and do something. Like there's a whole world out there. Like I mean,
Your feet can take you to the most beautiful views you'll ever
yeah,
see. Nothing else can. Your feet can take you places nothing else can. A bike is limiting. A
no, that's
skateboard
true.
is
Yeah.
limiting. A car is very limiting. You're moving very fast. You're not taking in much. You can't go through these paths and things to the greatest views. Like your feet are the only thing that are going to take you.
Yeah.
Well, I was talking to my brother yesterday about how it's very important to be able to go out into the outdoors alone. It's a good thing to be able to be out there away from all of the bustle of everything.
Yeah.
And if you can be alone in the wild with your spirit, I think that's the greatest test of any man. Like you take a common man from the city and sit him out in the middle of the desert for an hour. His mind is racing. He's worried what's going on back home. He's got all these, he can't just be there.
Yeah.
The average person, I would say, can't just dwell there and saunter, as they say, like enjoy the nothingness. If you can be alone with yourself in that environment and be calm and be at peace with yourself, I think that's the ultimate test of a person. That's how I judge people a lot of the time, is if they can be alone in solitude with themselves. Because I wasn't always like that. I used to panic in the woods, and like even with my brother with me, I had a breakdown one time when we went on a hike. But more than anything, my spirit wanted that happiness and solitude. Like I always wanted that. And then
Yeah.
eventually there reached this point where like I like am always desiring it more than anything, being back out on the road alone or on a trail or somewhere new alone. Like I love my girlfriend and my life and everything I have, but I think every man should be able to be alone.
No, there's definitely something to it. I think we got way too many distractions at this point.
Absolutely.
And it's definitely not healthy because you've got to be able to, like you said, kind of be alone with your thoughts. You got to be able to process. And when you have all these distractions, you become codependent and you don't really realize that's even happening because this is just normal life for us at this point. But I mean, we walk around with the internet literally in our pocket. So I'm about 10 years older than you. Like I remember when nobody had cell phones, and I remember when I finally got a household computer and I thought that like
That's what I grew up.
we had arrived. Like
I love that.
that was a good opportunity to kind of see that difference in lifestyle. But
We did get to see the world before the internet, and
yeah,
that's something a lot like we got to think people don't know what that world was like now. Like these younger generations, they have always been connected
but it's
since
kind of
since
scary
birth.
though. Yeah. I mean,
But with that connection comes a massive disconnection. Like
right.
I was watching a video of people in Taco Bell in the 90s and 2000s. Everyone's talking to each other.
Yeah.
You don't see anyone talk like strangers talking to each other in line and like but now you just see people staring at their mini microverse in their
On
hand
social
all the
media,
time, and
but we don't actually
people
socialize.
people that don't care about you most of the
Yeah.
time, but you're not meeting new people, you're not actually having organic interactions, like it's all something to give you some false sense of security, I feel like. And
Yeah.
that's a false sense of security that going back to being alone and stuff, like I don't buy into that at all.
It's kind of like the Matrix.
Don't get me started. Don't
So
get me started.
we could go down a lot of trails. It might not, maybe this is too fresh for all that. Maybe episode 200.
Yeah, yeah.
If you're constantly connected to your phone and you get caught in the momentum and the tempo of society. So the problem is that if you're not like a free thinker, if you're not individualistic, then you're susceptible to just going with whatever the trends are. And now you're detached from your own personhood to an extent. Like you don't even know what's original from you or not anymore.
You give up a part of your
You
identity.
can get lost in it. And then with social media, I've thought about that often. Like we're more connected than we've ever been. But like you said, we don't socialize. People are standoffish and you don't talk to people in public anymore. If somebody does, a lot of times people are like, man, what's up with this guy? Like, why
Yeah.
we're in line at Walmart? Like, why is he talking to me?
The loneliest I've ever felt is in a big city, dude.
Yeah, it's
I
crazy.
mean, the more people you have around you, usually the more lonely you're able to feel. And I mean, in a place like San Francisco or New York, you walk past a homeless person, you don't think about it because they're everywhere and they come a dime a dozen, and they're not like, people just neglect to acknowledge them all
Yeah,
the time. I had a lady break down and cry because I said hey to her once, and she was like, "Thanks for acknowledging my existence," and cried. That
yeah.
happened to me before because she's never, might have been weeks before anyone even acknowledged and looked her in the eyes once. But here in Florence, where it's not as big of an issue, you see someone who's homeless, we got good people around here, dude. A lot of the time you'll see someone stop, give them some
Yeah.
money, give them some food. Like, people think about it because there's less people and there's less of, like, you know what I mean? You're able to focus on those issues more when there's less of a flood of everything around you.
You made a comment. I listened to because you've launched a podcast as well, and we'll talk about that. And I'll give you a chance to share that here on the
Mhm.
back end. But either way, I listened to the episode because I wanted to listen to it, but then also I wanted to see if I'd pick anything up for our conversation. And you made a comment about Florence and just saying that it's your hometown. You could be in other places, but you feel that you need to be here.
Yes.
The older I've gotten, and especially now more than ever, at any point in my life, I've got such a great value for home. And I didn't select to be born here, but for whatever reason, this was where God placed me. This is where I'm from. This is where I've been.
Did you ever
And
live away?
yeah, I did. I lived in Augusta for about a year, and I spent 5 years of my childhood in through elementary school and then all the way through middle school in Columbia. So I was in the Irmo
Where were
area.
you in Augusta?
I was in Augusta in 2017.
So did that time away from home make you see things differently? Because that's definitely something that happened to me when I lived away.
Well, I mean, I've been able to travel a good bit too. I've been fortunate and blessed to be able to do that. But
That is a blessing. I acknowledge that too.
yeah, so because I mean, I've got friends that have like never been out of Florence.
Yes.
You know what I
Yeah, a
mean?
lot of Florence has never left this town. They consider it, I mean, a trip to Myrtle Beach to be like the crazy trip of the year, and
Yeah,
that's totally valid. I
yeah.
don't downplay that at all. I still love going
I
to
love
Myrtle
going to the
Beach.
beach. Yeah, it's the
Yeah,
second home.
nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with a homebody either. Like,
Yeah,
you like where you're from, you like where you're at. That's great. I encourage that just as
right.
well.
Well, there's a value in it. It's just. So to answer your question, I mean, it made me appreciate the main thing that Augusta did. I think it was really just seasonal. I felt like I needed to go there, and then when I needed to come home, it was my time to come home. But there was specifically one thing, maybe two, that it made me really appreciate about Florence. One, for me, and maybe some people in the area out there would laugh at this, but for me, the traffic in Augusta was horrible. So like on Washington
Hmm.
Road, just trying to get down from like Martinez to, I guess that's Evans down on the other end. It's like it take forever, and it's like a 2 mile drive.
Now that's on the South Carolina Georgia border,
It
right?
is. It's right
Yeah,
there
that's a
on the
big city.
Savannah River. Yeah,
It's split into like North Augusta too, right?
North
Like,
Augusta's in South Carolina. Yeah,
yeah, so
which is a
that's a
lot
big city.
smaller area. Yes.
That's a big city as a whole.
Yeah, it is. I mean, so the traffic was one thing. I got back home, I'm like, man, this is so much better. Even though traffic in Florence can be aggravating sometimes, it's nothing like that. And then also the proximity to the beach. So I
Yeah.
mean, you made that comment, but I mean, for a lot of us here at home, Myrtle Beach is a day trip. You get
Yeah,
up in the morning, go down there, and come back.
55 miles, dude.
Right.
It's chill.
So,
Stop in Aner, get some boiled peanuts or something.
but you're not near the ocean in Augusta, so and then the river's not the same. So I mean, it made me appreciate it from that standpoint. But really, to me, it's just home. There is value in being comfortable at home too, because some people are restless. So
Yeah.
they're constantly chasing something and they can't be at peace in their own home. So it's really just, I think what it really just comes down to is just, like I said, just being comfortable in your own skin and being at peace with your life. And a lot of people, this got way deeper and more philosophical than than I planned on it being. But
Well, you're
hopefully,
talking to me, dude.
yeah.
So
So,
we're
but
gonna,
hopefully, ideally, you would want anybody that you know or encounter to have peace, man. That's the elusive thing that people are chasing,
hmm.
and a lot of people don't have it. And then a lot of people are trying to find it in the wrong places, or even more
You
dangerous,
said they're
probably.
chasing it.
Yeah,
In my opinion, you shouldn't. You should be able to find it where you are, and that in any
right.
moment. If you're that's like the ultimate test is whatever's going on, whatever you've lost, whatever bad thing you're going through. You got to be able to find it in this moment because this moment will pass. these things going on will pass. You will become stronger. You will become numb to these things that once destroyed you. Like that's how life works. And you have to be able to find that peace in that moment. Even if you hurt, even if you're human and you feel these emotions, like you have to be able to do that.
Yeah.
Find the inner peace. Peace is a lot different than not being sad. Like you can be sad and be at peace with yourself and deal
Right.
with things, you know?
So it's one of it's one of the things that a lot of people don't realize from the outside looking in. So when you talk about Christianity, the Bible, Jesus, whatever term your mind resonates with, there, people have obviously no shortage of opinions. But a lot of times when you ask a believer, or even like myself, this is really, when you drill it all the way down, this is the defining factor that makes a man or woman live the way that they live in relation to God, particularly the God of the Bible, particularly Jesus.
Hmm.
Is And there's this famous scripture, that he supplies a peace that surpasses understanding. But it's good to have it on paper, it's good to quote it, but when it hits your heart and your mind, when your soul becomes flooded with that as a reality,
Hmm.
all the opinions in the world shatter and fall to the ground. There's a vacuum of you and God and gratitude,
That's true.
because that's what every man's searching for. And
Hmm.
it's not just peace, because peace can be fleeting, it can be temporary,
Yeah.
but a peace that
Yeah.
surpasses understanding, that's exactly what you were just talking about. Because if I'm in the middle of crisis, my understanding is fully aware of what I'm dealing with. I'm in the middle of crisis, trauma, um, just a bad situation, remorse, whatever it may be, mourning. And my understanding fully grasp that, because I'm human. I'm tied to my emotions and feelings. But if I can have a peace that, even though I'm in the midst of that, can surpass it and still be present, there's no price tag you can put on that.
That's true.
And when people have found that, another thing, like I said, folks, I didn't plan to go in here and preach in a sermon, but that
That's good.
there's a parable that Jesus tells, but he says that the man that has found the kingdom of God is like a man that found a treasure hidden in a field. He went back and sold everything that he had so that he could come back and buy the field, the whole field.
Hmm.
Because I'm going to make sure that I secure this as priority above all other things.
Hmm.
And that's really what it is, that peace that surpasses understanding.
Yeah, and it's like Job, the happiness is a fleeting emotion, but my mom always taught me to believe that joy is something you should
That's
try to
right.
find
Yeah.
in all things. And you can find, just like Job found joy and rejoice in the Lord through his grieving and mourning and losing everything. That's why God blessed him,
Yeah.
because he knew he could trust him to still be joyful and rejoice in the Lord despite the circumstances around.
And not questioning God's character, even though his circumstances weren't favorable.
Yeah, because bad things happen to the best
Happen
people.
to everybody up.
I would say the best people on this planet have had the worst things happen to them, and they didn't let it make them jaded.
All right. So shifting a hard right, maybe not. Maybe it's really probably not. But Saguaro is a pop up, or well,
Mhm.
I guess at the city center it's a little bit different. But
Yes. I happen to know people and have a kitchen connected to a
right.
commercial kitchen, so I take advantage of that one.
But where I first saw you at was at a Starfire parking lot.
Hmm.
And I'd seen maybe a couple of times going to work, because going back a few years, I had a 9 to 5, so I'd be out traveling about 8 in the morning, heading to the office. And I just know it would be very easy for people to not think about a pop up. They just wouldn't consider it. And so, like I said,
Yes.
Lewis told me, and then I went by, and the rest was history. But what I'm curious about specifically, I would imagine in a lot of ways, there's a lot more work that has to go into the preparation and the execution to run a pop up than if you had a brick and mortar and established kitchen, I would think. So,
That's a
what I
lot of
would like for
bricks.
you to share is, what is, and whatever you can share, what is the kind of day to day like to keep a pop up like that running? Like, what do you have to do preparation wise and just mechanically, all of that?
So when I started out, I had no clue what I was doing. I got the idea in the desert when I was coming back from a run. Starfire had burned down. I had no job.
Hmm.
So I was like, my back was against the wall. Sometimes that's when you make the biggest choices you ever make. And I thought in my head, I cannot go another year just being a server. So with $3,000 to my name, I put $3,000 into Saguaro. And that got me my tent, that got me my licensing, that got me everything I needed to start a POS system, $500, all that, like all the costs. And started with nothing but that canopy tent and that kitchen. And so every time I go out to do a pop up specifically, it's the most work because everything has to be cooked in advance. I have to have all of my equipment. The most equipment I'll ever need is when I'm opening the stand. I remember every piece, every tablecloth, table, warmer, sterno, lighter, every little thing. And I mean, it's a checklist in my head. I've got down to a science now. But at first, I was forgetting my cash box and I was forgetting my handheld at home and like all this stuff trying to remember it all. It's a lot of carrying and moving things around all the time. And I only had my Outback, remember? So
Yeah.
like I was operating out of the back of my Outback when you came by the first time, I believe. Um, but starting from scratch, the less you have, the less money you have to start, the more work you're going to be doing to get to where those people are that don't have to work so hard. I understood that from the beginning. So the prepackaged foods and pre-prepared blasted burritos, whatever I don't sell, I throw away. That's the most risk I'll ever have in my business because I'm taking all my inventory and it's not in a fridge waiting to be sold. I'm actively using my whole inventory and hoping that it sells every time. And that risk factor and that drive, it's hard to do if you aren't in a position to take risks in life. But luckily, my life put me in a place where I didn't have a kid yet. I had a job that was giving me decent money until Starfire burned down. Then I was getting insurance checks for a few months, so that was holding me over while I built it. And then it just the stars kind of aligned. So I mean, the pop-up stand is really difficult, or it was really difficult, I should say. Now, my mom called me last week and was like, "You're opening at Greenwood tonight, right?" And I was like, "What are you talking about? I don't know. I don't remember telling you this." She was like, "No, they have literacy night tonight. You have to be there in 4 hours." Had no groceries, nothing. Went to Sam's Club, got back home in an hour and a half, cooked it 2.5 hours, had all my stuff in my truck, set up right on time, dude. Like
Man.
I can do stuff like that now, but that would have been a nothing I could have ever accomplished at the beginning. I've had to get used to that work and that memory and remembering everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's a really difficult business strategy, and honestly, I wouldn't recommend it to anybody that I care about because there is so much work and lack of sleep. And for a year straight, I never stopped, dude. I actually got to a point where I was like, I cannot do this long term. But luckily, that first year, killing myself, I built the clientele, I built the name, I acted on it, I showed people I was serious, I got my work truck. All these things happened that pushed me onward towards a trailer now. So once I have that trailer and I make that happen for myself, building it from nothing, it's going to be so much easier for me. Like I've put myself through the hardest factors already, the hardest phases, I believe. Everything else is just paperwork, dude. It's all going to be easier from here on out. And which gives me more opportunity to push myself to do more with it. Like
Yeah.
I'm not going to take it easy because it's easier. I'm going to take advantage of how it's easier and keep building it.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm at.
There would have to be a lot of work and dedication that would have to go into running that thing. And that's why I mentioned that because a lot of people might see a pop up and say, oh, well, that's probably not really, there's not enough going on behind that to make that worth my time. But it actually could be the opposite because a lot of times we'll be quick to go to a chain restaurant or one of these, like a brick and mortar restaurant and not really think about it. So if somebody's managing, particularly one of these franchises, they've gone through the interview process. They've been brought in by people that are satellite, usually. Usually the owner operator is, I mean, they could be local, but a lot of times
They
they're not.
rarely appear.
Even if they are, corporate is off somewhere in some city in the Midwest or out west or something.
Yeah.
And for them, it's just a job. Now you've got good managers and you've got mediocre managers and you've got terrible managers,
Got
just like
bad
anything,
managers.
just like anything. But we won't get into all that. But the bottom line is you're going into this establishment and you're spending your money and you could be going into a scenario where somebody drugged themselves out of bed and they're going through the motions. They're doing the bare minimum. There's no direct supervision because they are the GM, they're running the place,
Hmm.
and that trickles down. So that attitude, that demeanor kind of flows down through the staff and you could get a product that it's there. It's to, they have a protocol for how they make the product, but you're just getting bare minimum effort for everybody. You, by necessity, if you're going to have any measure of success, you have to be dedicated and diligent to what you're doing. You don't have a choice because
Mhm.
you're going to sink. If you go out there to that parking lot and show up late or you halfway did something, then you're done. You're hosed. Like that's
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
And so you're getting, and that was my estimation, and that's definitely what I've seen from your product is a good consistency. So I mean, I knew that was a good question to ask. Hopefully that'd be eye-opening to somebody that's listening, possibly
Mhm.
just to think about it in a way you might not have.
When I open on Friday mornings, I open at 6:30 a.m. That means that I had to pack my car, I had to drive to the kitchen, I had to make everything, I had to make my sauces, roll the burritos, blast them, and I work Thursday nights at Starfire. So I mean, I get off at Starfire 10:30, get home around 11, take a shower, chill for a little bit, usually go to sleep around midnight, wake up at 4 and do that because I have to make sure everything's for the tent. I have to have a fire extinguisher. I have to have a sanitizer bucket. There's so many little things I have to run that tent
Mhm.
legally. So it's waking up at 4 really. If you see me out there, anytime I set up, there were hours that went into it beforehand before I ever showed up. And I don't have the help I used to have due to like other factors in my life. The friend that lost my dog was my main help with my business, and we're not good anymore. And other people in my life have been like unreliable. So I'm kind of I by default am just on my own. Like I don't have any help. It's a one man show. That's what I always tell people.
But it's going well out at the city center, though, isn't it?
Oh
Would
yeah,
you say it's?
I'm known there. Like that's my hot spot, and I love the other vendors there. I love like I've got regulars out there. It's a beautiful relationship I've formed with that market. And I want to be a part of it as long as possible and help it grow too, because they have a bunch of great stuff out there.
Yeah, I'd never been. So I didn't even actually know about it until recently. So as you know, my sons play basketball right there at the Pearl Moore gym, which is right across the street. I mean, I'm out there a lot, so I was like, I'm just gonna walk over,
Mhm.
and that was how I got introduced to the whole place.
It's slept on. It's the epitome of like slept on in Florence. I feel like.
Yeah, and it
Because everybody
probably
knows about the PD State Farmers
yes.
Market, but there's one right downtown that has great vendors as well.
How long has that been open?
It's been open a long time, like 7 years or
It's
something.
been that long. See, I
Yeah,
didn't.
it's
Yeah,
been a
that's
while, and I
probably
never
need
knew
to.
about it until I started working there, and I thought when I started, I was gonna be driving out to the PD State Farmers Market to do everything, and then they were like, "No, it's right downtown." And I was like, "Oh, nice. That's
Yeah,
right near me."
that's kind of a hidden gem and probably a wealth of opportunity too.
And it's located in the middle of Florence, so
Yeah,
no matter where you live here, you can get to it pretty fast.
you mentioned the trailer, so that's the next
It's
venture.
the next phase.
So are we? Is this kind of like a food truck type of scenario?
I got my truck, and I financed that and paid for most of it up front with all money I made from Saguaro in the
Nice.
past year and a half or so. And that truck is the biggest investment I've ever made in my life. But I didn't think twice about it because I have a goal, and that's
Yeah,
half of the goal. So now I have half of it that I wake up to and walk out to every day, encouraging me that yes, the other half is attainable and it's close, and I'm well on my way to securing it without going into a bunch of debt or anything. Like I've worked really hard, and I don't go out on weekend nights. I don't spend my money like non-frugally all the time. I'm very, very adamant about being a good steward with what you earn and what you're blessed with.
hmm
So my trailer's going to be also, I mean, this is all from nothing, but I mean, that's what I'm working for now, just with tips from Starfire people leave me and my burrito sales. And I'm well on my way. It'll be in the next year.
So what can we expect? So you'll have a mobile kitchen at that point,
Yes. I'll
without giving
be
too much away, obviously. But I mean, what can we expect?
You can expect me to be all over the place. You can expect me to be getting licensing in other cities. You can expect me to be reaching out more, and you can expect me to finally, it's not going to be driving by and seeing that tent and wondering anymore. People are going to see that trailer and stop. I
Yeah,
can tell you because I know there's an advantage to a trailer. I've set up beside trailers and almost matched their sales with one little one man show me.
yeah.
So imagine what I can do when I pull up in the Saguaro trailer,
Yeah, no,
ready to go.
I mean, perception is 90% of reality, and
It
that's
is.
why I wanted to highlight the stuff
It
about the
is.
pop up because I didn't, that could be an error to not have the right outlook on that. And maybe the first time you see it, that's fine. But if somebody's been doing this for like 2 years, then you probably need to stop and check them out
Yeah.
because they have to be doing something correctly to continue
If
putting
you have
themselves through
if
that.
you have a food and bev business and you're still operating
Yes.
after a year, you're making some money. You're cutting even at least, because if you're doing bad, you're doing bad, and you
Yeah.
can't afford to keep
You can't, they wouldn't be out there. So you need
No.
to stop and check them out. And then, but with that being said, to your point, a truck or a trailer is kind of like the next step up.
Mhm.
And I know that's going to offer a lot more opportunities for you too, because
Oh, yeah.
it won't require quite as much
Like
on the setup side.
FMU, I asked to set up at FMU because I'm an opportunist. I would rather set up one place one day of the week and make all the money that I could make all week setting up somewhere dead. So I'm thinking college classes change at this time in the morning. If I set up a little tent on FMU campus and those kids got to know my product, I could be selling to so many college students between classes
Yeah.
and stuff. But I called them and asked about it, and they said you have to have a trailer. And then funny enough, when I was on that call, my phone died right when he said that, so they probably think I just like hung up bad. But like, I remember he was like, "You have to have a trailer to come out here," and then my phone died. And I was like, and I've never talked to them again after that. So,
Well, maybe they'll see this.
yeah,
Hey, you didn't
yeah, it
hang up on
wasn't
them.
anything personal. I will be out there one day once I have a trailer, hopefully.
Well,
But things like
that
that,
might have been all you needed to hear. That was that kind of little moment of motivation for that day.
exactly. So there are
Yeah.
certain things like certain events and stuff. You got to have a trailer.
Yeah.
You have to
Okay.
have a commercially approved cooking environment. So
So I didn't plan on asking this, but I thought maybe just because I've got the background in service, you're working at Starfire. When I was your age, I was still well into my serving career. I was probably halfway in at that point. So let's just talk about this because this is
yeah,
something I'm passionate about, even though I'm far removed, is the reality. So server life is its own reality.
totally different life than the other life.
Yes.
Yes.
It's like its own thing.
Hmm.
And you know, I think what happens, a lot of people end up in the server cycle or the service industry perpetually, whatever, because it can provide a good opportunity. And everybody has different reasons. But for me, I squandered high school and then I came out like a lot of 18-year-olds and I didn't know I had no clue what I wanted to do with my life. I had given it no realistic thought. I didn't have the guidance to, and even if I did, maybe I would have listened, maybe I wouldn't. And then some poor choices that led to circumstances and consequences and all these things. And so by the time I get to my early 20s, this was the best opportunity, for me is to go in. And I actually started in the back of the house. My first um here, I don't want to lie about this. Let me make sure I'm telling you the truth. But I think if I remember correctly, my first restaurant job was I think it was washing dishes at Cece's when it opened, or it was Olive Garden. I did both.
Hmm.
Just go back and look. Whichever restaurant in Florence opened first, that was the first one for me.
I think Cece's was there.
I think it was Cece's. Yeah,
Hmm.
I think it was. And I was washing dishes there, and then there was a pay raise to go to Olive Garden and wash dishes there. It was like $8.25 an hour for a dishwasher. In case you were curious, starting off at the first crew at Olive Garden, I washed dishes there, and then a little bit of time later, a buddy of mine was the bartender at Ruby Tuesdays on 52. And he was like, dude, he's like, why don't you go to the front of the house and you can wait tables? And it's funny doing what I do now, but my response to him was like, I can't wait tables. I can't talk to people. I was like, there's no like, so here I am doing this. But I was like, I gotta talk to all of these strangers. Like, I can't do that.
Yeah, that's a
He's like,
lot different than back of house.
he's like, dude, you're an idiot. Like, you can definitely do it. And you'll make like 3 times the amount of money
People
you're
make
making
it.
washing
Yes.
dishes.
Yep.
So I was like, all right, just get me an interview and I'll go. If they give me the job, I'll try it. And that was my first serving job was Ruby Tuesday on 52. I actually worked at all 3 Ruby Tuesdays in Florence at different times, not because I was getting fired or job hopping, but I got moved around when we had different needs. So like
Mhm.
staff falls apart at the mall, and I remember having to go over there for a little while. I think Tim McNamara was the manager over there. I had to go help out there. So that was my first gig, and then I worked at some other places, but majority I had a pretty lengthy stint at Redbone, and
Nice.
the longest that I worked though was at Percy and Willie's, 2 different times, about 5 years total at Percy's,
Okay.
both locations. So, anyways, I know what the server life is like. One of the things for me, especially the older I got, that was just dragging me was the hours. And so I look at it now, like we talked about seasons. The season I'm in now, I couldn't do it. I mean, I can't. There's a lot of nights, especially if you move your way up and you're closing.
Hmm.
You almost in the restaurant industry, you almost get punished for being at the top because they're gonna keep you there the longest.
Yeah.
And it would depend on how they're built, but in the restaurants I was at, that's how it worked. A lot of times you don't get home till 1 o'clock in the morning. The nights that I was bartending at Percy's, I was getting some of the better bartending shifts for a while there. And by the time you close the bar down, clean everything up, cap everything, and cash out, I mean, it's like 1 o'clock in the morning before you're getting home.
Hmm.
Now you might make 300 some odd dollars that night,
Yeah.
and that's the hook
Yeah.
because that kind of money, you really can't, without a degree or without a skill in a trade, or just a good opportunity, a door opening, you really can't make the kind of money you can make serving tables
And you
uh,
get your money daily.
anywhere else, and then you get it daily,
Yeah,
exactly.
so
And so
you
you,
can budget your money on a daily basis instead of waiting for a check every 2 weeks and having to divvy it up all at once. Like
right,
you get to play around with your money, put a little to the side for whatever. And for some people, that's a bad thing, leaving with their cash every night. For
yeah,
me, it's the best thing. I'm really good with my money when every day I know like, oh, Wednesday was a little weak. I hope I make a little more on Thursday. Oh, Saguaro, I make all my money daily with my business. So, like, if I have a rough day and have a bunch of inventory left this day, I can open an extra day, like, because I know how I did this day. I
yeah.
know that I need to make up for it here. And that's how I think. So,
So a lot of people who go out to eat, they don't realize that servers, for us it was 213 an hour. I would imagine it's still the same thing.
yeah, yeah. Well, Starfire, they spoil us and give us 350.
Okay, well then that's
But I
good.
mean, it helps a little on taxes.
It
I'll
does,
take
yeah, it
it.
does.
I'll take it.
So yeah, I would too. But it's still, well under minimum wage on that check. So you really don't get a check as a server.
And it doesn't really make sense how that's able to happen, really, but that's just the one job where that like people don't understand. You really have a zeroed out paycheck. Every time you get a paycheck, that's nothing. You live off of your tips.
I think that so you have to claim your tips. That's one thing. Some people
Hmm.
shoot themselves in the foot because a lot of servers won't claim their tips,
Yeah.
but you actually really want to claim your tips because, especially in the field that I'm in now, if you went to go get a mortgage for a home and you're making enough, I mean, this happens to people. Like, that you're making enough
Hmm.
to pay a mortgage. And so you could get pre-qualified for like a $250,000 loan, which will get you a pretty decent home in Florence right now. But you haven't been claiming your tips for 5 years. And so what you have been claiming is like 30% less than what you're actually making.
Hmm.
You're gonna box yourself out of that pre-approval. You're not gonna be able to get the home. Like it's that serious.
And probably
Or
not as good of a interest rate or whatever.
yeah, if yeah, I mean there could be a variety of scenarios that it could play out, but the bottom line is you're gonna negatively impact yourself.
Yeah.
Same thing with like trying to get a car. You need to be able to show your income. Now some people don't care about that
Hmm.
and they might not care, but I'm just saying it's something to think about.
If you plan on renting your whole life, you don't need to care. If you plan on ever owning anything, you need to care. Which
So
owning things is the best way to go.
it's a good
For
idea.
anybody out there, don't have no assets. Like I'm really glad that I have some assets out there in case anything ever does happen. I'm not just
People have different opinions on this, but you know, I don't understand the other side of this conversation. I saw somebody post something on X or something like that a few weeks ago, and she said, renting and buying is basically the same thing. She said because even once you pay off the entirety of that mortgage, then you still have to pay taxes. And I'm like, that to me, with all due respect, is a really ridiculous comment to make. And so, my response was, well, I'll tell you what, then after you've rented a home for 25 years, go try to sell it and get your $350,000
yeah,
back and let me
that's
know how that works out for you.
property taxes does not even compare to paying rent every month.
Right.
Like that's property tax is unconstitutional in my opinion because you've already paid something off. Same thing with your car. Why am I paying tax on something that's paid off? That makes no sense. That's a scam. I mean, to me, that I don't like the idea of property
I don't
tax,
either.
but I don't think anybody. It doesn't make any
But I'd
sense.
still rather own my house than be
Yeah,
renting it.
but no, that is way better than paying rent, and
Right.
having no hold in that house.
Exactly.
Yeah, because that house is worth a lot. There's not
Because
much more worth more than real estate.
exactly, you at least have equity.
Mhm.
So either way, we kind of got off track. But would you say I always saw Starfire as one of the big three? Now things are changing, and we talk about this all the time here on this platform. Obviously, the food scene has changed a lot in Florence over the last 15 years.
It has.
But for the big portion of my life and time here, the big three was like Percy's, Redbone, and Starfire. That was like the
Mhm.
big three restaurants. And I worked at two out of those three. And, you know, we did well in terms of our clientele and just how, just, I mean, I don't know another way to say it, how well that they tipped and they understood, how to tip a server. Usually 20% is what you could expect for the most part.
Starfire is the best tips I've ever gotten anywhere. We got a nice atmosphere. It's very clean, laid back. The most up in Greek restaurant in Florence, undoubtedly.
Yeah.
You can argue the best or worst, whatever, but as far as the atmosphere inside, you're not going to find a nicer atmosphere in Florence for a Greek restaurant.
No, Starfire is excellent. And I mean, they got their specialty. So obviously the cheesecake.
Mm-hmm.
Every year I've talked about it on one of the videos here. I actually got one, I don't remember what video it was, somewhere around October. But the pumpkin cheesecake, I always got to get at least one.
Yeah, that's the October
It's
one.
fire.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we sell a lot of that. Right now, it's the cookie butter cheesecake that sells like crazy too.
I've never had that one. What is
Cookie
that?
butter glaze, Biscoff cookie butter glaze.
Yeah.
That they make fresh in the kitchen with Biscoff and other ingredients, and then they put like cookie crumbs on top. It's good.
What's your favorite thing on the menu at Starfire?
Oh man, I like our two hot chicken and shrimp or hot buffalo chicken salad. But I'm a buffalo chicken guy. But we do ours right, and we have the best ranch and blue cheese to match, in my opinion. And so for me, ranch is huge, and I would argue Starfire has the best ranch in town.
You know who's got a really
Redbone
good?
has good ranch too.
Yeah, they do. Blue cheese. We don't have one here, but maybe we will one day. It's possible. But California Dreamin'. If you ever been to California Dreamin' before?
It's one of my favorite chains.
Their blue cheese is excellent.
Mhm.
Complete side note, but it's true. So if you're ever in Augusta, Charleston, Myrtle Beach,
I'll have to get
Columbia. So we've been ranking these burgers on the YouTube channel.
Mm-hmm. I mention you all the time at work. When people ask me about the burgers, I literally say my
Nice.
friend Sam Fryer from Florence Foodies put us very high on his list of burgers.
I'd never had it. So the first one I had was right here in this room, and actually blew me away.
I mean,
Obviously,
for real, that comment I've made to at least like 20 tables since I saw your podcast.
Sweet.
About it. Like I mention it, and it also helps people be like, oh yeah, I'm getting that. And I mean, I sell a lot of more burgers than I used to, but I noticed the day, like week or two after you made that podcast, I saw a lot more burgers get sold. I'm not kidding.
Well, they're good, man. So I would be confident that there have not been many people that were disappointed. If they went in there with that recommendation or feeling hopeful, they probably were satisfied.
Yeah, and then we have people come in thinking Greek. I don't want to go American
Right.
because they may not focus as much on that. Starfire's been around so long; their process is so solidified. When Rob took over, he kept everything the same: supplier, recipe, everything. So they really have mastered both of those. I would say, like
Yeah.
it's kind of a false idea of Starfire when people come in. They're like, I should go Greek because the American might be whatever. Nah, dude.
After having that burger, that changed this a little bit. But usually, I would get the Euro platter.
Mm-hmm.
That's my go-to.
Yeah, that sells all the time.
The biscuits come out, and I try to not eat too many, and then the Euro platter, and I'm good to go.
Mm-hmm. That's a lot of food. The Euro platters.
It is.
I guess kind of like the rise through all these jobs and like over time, kind of like you with Percy and Willie's. Like I was scared of being a server before I became one the first time. And I worked in all these fine dining restaurants in Charleston. I worked at Hominy Grill, the breakfast spot that was downtown, biggest breakfast spot downtown before it closed. I worked at Vincent Chico's Italian Dining. I worked at Sunrise Bistro. I worked at Brown Dog Deli downtown, like all these different restaurants. And I went to a bunch of restaurants. And I had that experience. And I even like started really humble in Florence, concessions at the Red Wolves Field when I was 15. Moe's Southwest Grill in high school, like last couple of years. But all of those jobs led me to like look at the serving job as like, wow, that's the top. Like it's so intimidating. When I was in Vincent Chico's watching these servers stay till 2 a.m. for one table that wouldn't leave, it kind of made me jaded towards it. And I was like, I don't know if I want to do all that. It seems like a lot of work.
It is.
It is. When I went out to California, I remember another situation. I had no money. My back was to the wall. I had a fiance at the time and all this like riding on me. And I thought to myself, I need to make some money, dude. So I applied to be a server in this ale house in downtown Tracy. That's where I met that dude from Florence, was at that job.
Okay.
And that was the first job. He didn't work there. He was friends with someone who I worked with who happened to be from Hartsville. So I get a job at this restaurant. There's a girl there who has a job there, like 2 months after me, comes in, interviews from Hartsville. And it's not even a big city in California. It's the middle of nowhere. But they had Justin out there with them. So Justin was his name. That's how I met him. But I got that job serving, and the first day I went out, and I was an anxious wreck. I remember I was shaking, like I wasn't I was in California, and I did deliver weed and smoke weed sometimes, but I promise you, dude, I was totally straight that day. Like I went in totally fine, and I was just an anxious wreck. And I remember the next day when I came in, my boss was like, Matt, I have to talk to you. You got us a 1-star review yesterday. And I like go on this Google review and read it. And this lady is just going off on me about all these things I did. And she was like, he looked like he was stoned. He was like tripping and stuff. And I was like, no, I was just terrified, like anxious, because it was the first time I ever had served. And it seemed like this big thing. And I remember my boss was like, I'm going to give you 5 minutes to go out back and just deal with it, because I can tell it's upset you a lot. And I went out back to this parking lot, and I stared at my car I just bought that I was financing with nothing to my name, because my fiance's stepfather co-signed it. I didn't have any money. Um, and I just kind of looked. It's at one of those moments. Like I was like, it's all on the line here. Like if I don't get this job, there's no guarantee I'm going to get another job in time to pay my rent and to pay for all these things I need. So I remember I was like, you're going to be the best server that's ever lived. You're going to go back in there and you're going to have a great night. It's going to be a whole different match. And ever since then, dude, I've loved serving, and I've loved the chaos, and I've loved having 10 tables at one
You
time,
got to.
needing all sorts of stuff.
Yeah.
And it's just, that's how it started. And then after that, I built my savings account, moved to Oregon, worked in hospital for a little time there, worked in a marijuana warehouse rolling doobies for a while. But when I got back to the East Coast, I went back into restaurants. So that's kind of my journey to how I got here to be a server. And all those jobs, I was just watching the boss. I was just watching the owner, because it was I didn't have to go to college. I was watching somebody in a successful position and how
Yeah.
they treated what was making their livelihood happen. And I've had terrible examples, and I've had amazing
Mm.
examples, and I've had abusive, terrible examples that, like, I've quit jobs because I don't like being cussed at. That's a big thing in restaurants. People get in the heat of the moment, they'll cuss you out or something. Nah, when I
Yeah.
interview, I say, I'm Matthew Jordan. The day you cuss at me the first time is the day I walk out and never come back in here, because you've lost me, because you've shown me you don't respect me. It doesn't matter what's going on around us. I ain't going to talk to you like that. So that's a big deal breaker with me. And that's why I rub a lot of people wrong, is because I have standards. I'm not some desperate person who needs a server job. I'm a grown man who's doing this because I like it. And I need to be treated with some level of respect, or I'm not going to function here at all.
Yeah.
You know?
It's funny that, because it's true. It's 100% true. It's the server life, and I'm sure it's this way across the entire country. I can say from experience from here to Georgia, it is that it's a culture, and it's organic. It's natural because this is the byproduct of all the circumstances that are in place. So this is how it's going to be. There's the same set of dynamics that you're going to run into, these same scenarios no matter where you go, and it's all of the above. So you said the chaos, like you have to love it. So I'll give you more proof that it is the same everywhere. If I said new couple of new employees come in, you get into a Friday night and you spot one and say she or he is going to cry in the bathroom. Like you know exactly what I'm talking
Yeah,
about.
yeah. They're so
Like
sensitive, and they get
they're going to be in
overwhelmed.
the bathroom crying in a couple
Get
hours.
overwhelmed easily.
Exactly. So it's like you have to understand the chaos, you have to adapt to it, and then you have to embrace it. Like you have to learn to feed off of it,
Hmm.
and you kind of just get into a rhythm.
I love taking someone who came in with the worst attitude, maybe had a terrible day, maybe
Yeah.
had their wife leave them. Like you never know what somebody's going through when they
Hmm.
just got diagnosed with something. Happens all the time, dude. People come in with a bad attitude. You don't know what they're dealing with. And they don't think about you. They're not going to think about you at all, or the difference you make in their day, unless you're a positive, driven person who wants to give them a good experience. But
Yeah.
they could leave with a great attitude. I see it happen every day I go in. They come in, they have a straight face, water. When I say how are you, no response, just water. By the end, they're like, man, I really, really enjoyed this. Like, and the food was great. And I'm just like, you have a great day. And I
Right.
mean it. Like, I really want them to leave and have a great
Yeah,
rest of their day. I will do whatever it takes to make it right. Cause I understand being unhappy if your steak comes out cooked wrong. That's a $35 steak.
right.
I'm going to make it right. We're going to make it right. The restaurant's going to make it right for you. And I'm going to do it faster than most people will because it's number one priority.
I guess the bottom line is it's not an easy gig. And so I
It's
think
not.
that, maybe everybody can't do it, but I think a lot of people probably can. You're just going to have to adapt. Like you got to develop thick skin. You have to learn how to multitask. If you can't multitask, you're not going to make it.
And if you don't enjoy, like I said, making people happy
Right.
and making things right and dealing with difficult people, like you have to be able to do that. And if you can learn that as a server, you can carry that into being the owner of something and be able to handle
Yeah.
that. Because a lot of these people that their parents handed them a business, they've been given everything their whole life. What do they do when someone crosses them wrong or disrespects them? You hear these stories about owners cussing people out and getting mad. And it's because they were never me.
Yeah.
I ain't gonna do that because I'm numb to it because this is the world I came from. I'm a player, not an observer. I've been in the game all this time. I have that. It goes over my head.
Yeah.
It bothers me more when I see something happen to someone I work with than
Yeah.
me. And I mean, I can take whatever, but most people that they lose their cool a lot. There are a lot of verbally abusive bosses out there that in the heat of the moment, when a customer or an employee says something, they'll lose their cool, but that's because they haven't had those poor man lessons, and you have to have those lessons to be the best kind of rich man if you ever are going to be one.
Yeah. It's customer service, man. I mean, it's kind of seems like a dying art.
Yeah, and I feel like
Hopefully it'll
robots
come.
are going to replace us in 10 years anyways. So
Yeah, it might not even matter. Like, who
I have
cares?
this looming fear serving's not going to exist in like
Yeah.
10 or
Hey,
15
well,
years.
that's a good point. That's a good point. But I mean, I think just the foundation behind what customer service is still important. And
Yeah, and
so,
that human interaction is going to be something people miss that a lot of people are like, why am I paying the server and tipping them? And all? I'm like, do you want robots that just bring you what you want and aren't human? And like, the world is
yeah,
about that organicness of having a human being come to
yeah.
your table, bring you what you need. Like, it's not the same, and it won't ever be the same.
No, but we're definitely moving into the future. That's a whole nother conversation. We'll just have to bring you back and just have a whole different
Oh yeah, dude.
thread of
Can't wait.
conversations, and we'll kind of start to wind this down here. But I'll say
Mhm.
that we obviously talk a lot about Florence's food scene and just restaurants and food in general here on this channel and platform. And my personal opinion, because I've been in all those situations. Like I said, it's the same old stories. So it's just server life. I've had great managers, and then I've been in situations that were not so great. To just say it like that, but it's really
Manager determines everything.
it does, yes, and that's what I'm getting at is it's really a culture, and so the culture of a restaurant is gonna flow all the way down to the product that gets put on the table.
Hmm.
And I've seen, I've gotten the opportunity, much like you said, to observe people in their element and kind of dissect a lot of that and see some things that I think are beneficial that could be productive and efficient, and then see some things say, this is actually counterproductive.
Yeah.
Like you're actually hurting your own bottom line with this approach. And I'll just put somebody on blast real quick in a positive way. I saw a post from Town Hall the other day, and they had, I think it was Employee of the Year. They posted on Instagram
Hmm.
like 2 days ago. And I thought about places I'd been and
I
said,
think I saw
man,
what you're
I was
talking
like,
about.
man, like, no, like there's certain places I've been like that it would have never even crossed their mind to do something like that. But I was looking like, how healthy is that for that restaurant? And so when you go into Town Hall and you get a great steak, in my case, last weekend, a great burger, or whatever it is
Hmm.
that gets on the table, you got to understand that it's not just the recipes, it's not just the chef they brought in, it's not just, the standards coming from some place out in wherever it's at, but the culture in that restaurant or in any restaurant plays a pivotal role in what you actually get on your plate.
Yeah.
And some people understand that and some people don't, I guess. So, and I've been blessed in the work that we've been doing too to sit down with a lot of different restaurant owners and talk to them. And I've been really encouraged. Pretty much, well, really not pretty much. Every restaurant that we've showcased, I can honestly say where I sat down with the owners and get a chance to have a conversation with them, learn about the restaurant, their background, their why, all of that stuff, is that's really a common theme that I've seen. And each one of those restaurants are great.
Hmm.
So uh, just something that a lot of people don't think about the nuance that goes into things, and a restaurant is heavily nuanced. I mean, from every angle: quality of ingredients, preparation, style, and method. But then also leadership's a critical part of that.
Yeah, and I try to learn from those leaders in my past with Saguaro. Like I don't have any employees yet, but if I have an event where I need an extra hand and I know I'm going to make good money, I try to pay my workers that help me better than I know most restaurants do, even though I'm nobody. So the thing that makes me wonder is like, how am I able to do this and I'm cutting even, but other people are paying these people so little? And it all comes down to like the money and the love of money over like your people. And I always try to look out for my people that help me because when you value your employees, they're more trustworthy. They're less thinking about what they're owed from you. If you take care of them, they're not thinking those kinds of things. They're
Right.
thinking, "Oh, I love working for this guy. I know he's gonna." When people come out to help me, every time I give them the cash when they show up, I'm like, "Here's your pay for the day. Let's get started." Because I want to go ahead and get that out of the way. Everything else is for me. Like, but I always make sure that my people are taken care of, even though I don't have much right now.
Yeah.
I still do that on my level.
Yeah. I mean, you want people to be excited to come to work as much as possible.
Yeah.
You want to incentivize them. So, with that being said, I'm asking this question at the end of these episodes,
Okay.
and it's what is your favorite item? It could be more than one. Alex gave a list of things that he likes, but particularly at least one favorite item in Florence to eat at a restaurant. And I'm going to give you the example of mine of how I held myself accountable to answer this. So for me, it is the carnitas at salsa y limon,
I love saucy lemon, dude.
not necessarily because it's pound for pound. Maybe if I could get any dish I want just to appear, that may or may not be what I would select. But the way that I evaluate this and what I'm asking you to do the same is that is what for the last like 5 years, 4 or 5 years, that particular dish from that particular establishment is what I have purchased more than anything else. And like it's like they always say, follow the money. Where the money goes, that's what tells the
Oh, I
story.
got you.
And so for
Got you.
me, it goes to the carnitas at salsa y limon. So I'm asking
That
you,
sounds good.
what is your favorite dish or item in Florence from a restaurant?
So this is a two-way tie right
Can't
down the
say your
middle.
own either.
Say what?
You can't say saguaros either. It can't be your
Oh
own.
no, I got you. I got you. So it's a split right down the middle. I love Sakura Sushi. They're the only place that does a hand roll. They have the best sushi prices in town. Their spicy tuna roll doesn't have the mayo on top. The tuna's just spicy. I don't really like spicy mayo. So I mean, every day, two out of the 4 days I work, they're getting a takeout order from me every week for 2 or 3 spicy hand rolls. And I just hold them, go into Starfire, pour soy sauce, eat them real fast before I start my shift. And then the other one, when I want to treat myself, is Taste of India. I go there to get the goat curry or the chicken korma, chicken madras. I always get my curry as spicy as possible.
Same.
Non platter with the potato naan, garlic plain. Uh, get the mango lassi. Get a flying horse
Yeah.
beer. Treat. That's where I treat myself. I like to take my girlfriend there and us have a nice dinner. Me and my brother, we meet there all the time to eat. That's my favorite restaurant in Florence is Taste of India because I love Indian food and they do it right. I've had a lot of Indian friends in my life through IB and stuff, so I've eaten Indian food a lot.
Yeah.
I love spicy and I love flavor and spices and seasoning, and so Indian's up there for me. And flavors of India does it particularly good. So
Nice. Good answers, man. I like
yeah.
that. So for one, it we'll start with Sakura. So Sakura is actually on that list of restaurants that I worked at.
Oh
I
really?
didn't have a super long stint there. I was kind of transitioning, I guess.
Hmm.
But I did work there for a little while, and I've had a ton of their spicy tuna rolls. That was actually my go-to.
Hmm.
And there was a guy named Diego that was doing the rolls at the sushi at that time. I don't think Diego's there anymore though. And then India, I usually get the butter chicken, but I get it
It's
as
classic.
spicy as they can make it.
Hmm.
And then a cheese naan and the mango lassi also. That's my go-to.
Hmm.
So, As a matter of fact, I think I had that same setup on this channel on one video that we did. So
Nice. Yeah, that's my favorite.
nice, good answers, man. That's
Mhm.
good. All right, well, good stuff. Good stuff. So why don't you take a couple minutes and just let people know where they can find you. So whether it's Saguaros or the upcoming run, anything you want to mention about that,
Yeah, yeah,
anything
absolutely.
that you want to mention, just take a couple minutes to let people know where they can find you.
So far in my life, just until I get a trailer and everything, my business and my fundraising is all ran off of Facebook. I have a page called Moving with a Purpose, and that's what I call my runs, is moving with a purpose. You can find my page on Facebook, and that's where I make updates about my run once it gets close to it. Once I get running, I make daily posts. And you can DM me on Facebook if you're interested in donating or anything. I try to avoid GoFundMe because, like I said, they take a percentage. And I like to make sure I get everything that I possibly can to them. 5% makes a difference when you raise $2,000. That's like
Yeah.
$100. So, um, yeah, mainly Facebook, and then for my business, Facebook as well. If you look up Saguaro, Saguaro, Breakfast Burritos Ltd. Limited. I post my schedule usually Wednesday or Thursday for the weekend. It's usually the same right now until I get a trailer. It's just Saturdays at the market, 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. That's at 200 Sanborn Street downtown. And then Local Motive on Sundays, I work out of their food truck, which they bought back recently. So I cook everything fresh in their trailer on Sundays from 11 to 4. I'm doing Korean corn dogs this weekend.
Nice.
That I do fun specials there and stuff. Um, but that's how you can find me anywhere. I usually those are my two spots right now. I do caterings and events too. That's my specialty. So like offices, schools, churches, all that. That's like groups of 30 to 50 people. That's me. Like I love those gigs because I can make sure that it goes really special and great for them and everything comes out perfect. And I'm guaranteed the money instead of risking losses every time I go out with the stand.
Yeah.
So caterings and events are what keep me alive, honestly.
Okay. I didn't know you
The
were doing
the
that. That's a good idea. Yeah.
the stand is like PR. That's how I look at it. I just do that so that people see me and I get my name out there.
Yeah.
But I make all my big money off caterings and events. That's how I got the truck. Like that alone. So
Nice. Okay. I didn't know you were doing that. That's great.
that's all I'm really, unless all my food is prepackaged, like at the stand at Starfire, that's what I'm mainly licensed to do is caterings and events. Hmm.
Cool. Okay. Well, look, I appreciate you coming.
Of course, yeah.
I enjoyed it. We'll have to
It was a
do it
privilege.
again, honestly, because I didn't. We could probably talk for hours, but
We could.
we're gonna wrap this one up. So make sure that y'all check Matt out. He told you where you can find him on Facebook. I'll link his sites and socials down in the description of this podcast, so you'll be able to go find it down there. Check Matt out. As always, I appreciate y'all's viewership. Look forward to seeing y'all around. In the meantime, y'all take care. God willing, we'll see you on the next one.